My name is Catherine ONeill.
And I'm Stacey Welton, and this is Fund and Flip.
Welcome to Fund and Flip. This is episode number 1. And we are here today to tell you a little bit about ourselves and why we have started this show. A little bit about me. I am a professional engineer, for anyone who is Canadian and knows about that. I worked for 30 years for a Fortune 100 company, and I always thought I would go into consulting, but I had a chance conversation with an old boss of mine, and she told me about her investment properties, and that really surprised me because I did not know that regular people could own investment properties. I thought that was something that only rich people did. But when I began to ask the question of people, I found that a lot of people had investment properties. And I thought, that sounds interesting and intriguing and something that I haven't done before. I bought a couple of properties, and it was really amazing to me, the state of some of the properties. One of the ones that I bought in Windsor was just fatigued. It was tired, and then the other one was a bylaw infraction, whole series of problems building, but I could see the potential. So fast forward through many renovations and challenges and unexpected things, the buildings are both beautiful. And they went from where I would either be a little concerned about having any of my daughters live in them to where I'm very proud of having my daughters live in those buildings. And although I haven't flipped myself, I can see what flippers do, taking some place that is, at the best, tired, at the worst, frightening, and then making such a big difference for the community, for the people who want to live there. Maybe sometime I'll be able to show what I did with my renovations, but it's shocking to me what a difference you can make if you put time and money into it. So that's a little bit about me and my experience with doing some of the renovations.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. Hi, everyone. I'm Stacey. I am a naturopathic doctor by trade, and I practiced that for, 5 years or so, after which I moved into sort of the food and beverage arena, where I now own and operate some bars and restaurants here in Toronto. So I've been doing that for the last decade or so. And for me, my transition into this field happened about a year ago. I've always been really interested, but COVID hit, and for me, I started to think about different ways that I could help support my family and just sort of change what it was that I was doing, add to my income, do something new. I've always loved learning and trying something new. So, and real estate has always been something that's very fascinating to me. So, I joined some masterminds, and as you know, Council and CashFlow Tribe, and that's sort of how I ended up here with Catherine.
That's how we met.
That is.
We met through Council, which, as Stacey said, is a mastermind, and the rest will be history. We hit it off, right off, and here we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing the show, but then also we're working on a business together too, which is turning out to be, because I am not an entrepreneur by training at heart, and it's turning out to be very exciting, a little challenging, but very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely, as they are, and I have a real entrepreneurial spirit, as you know, and that's, I think, what makes us such a good pair. A good pair, and I'm really excited to be working together and teaching all of you guys as you go along with us, learning about our new business and what it is that we're doing and how we're looking to help people. So I'm really excited about that.
And we're going to be bringing a bunch of guests, people who have experience funding with creative financing, flipping, why they do it, how it helps their families, how it helps their communities. For me, on the funding side, that is something that I have done. So I had heard about private lending, which again, I only thought the banks did. through these various real estate masterminds. And then I was telling a friend of mine about it, and she told me that her mother, Mrs. Fairweather, did private lending in the 1970s with her bank, with her lawyer. And I thought, Mrs. Fairweather in the 1970s? And we never talked about this, probably because I never asked. But that idea of being able to use money that you have, this is not what I want to say. Okay, so we're just going to cut out a little bit of that.
Yeah, for sure.
And we'll go back to what I wanted to say. So my journey with lending or borrowing came with our house. We bought our second house in 2002. It was a fixer-upper because that was what we could afford at the time, and a bigger house from our first one. And we renovated it ourselves because that was all the money that we had. And for $350,000 that the bank mainly owned, flash forward to 2012, we paid it off. And if you look at the appreciation in house prices in the GTA area, it's probably worth something like 1.7 or 1.8 million, which was not all the renovation that we did. It was mainly where it is and how close it is to Toronto. We like our home. We like the neighborhood. We don't want to sell. We know that when we do sell, we'll get a bunch of money. But I had wished there was a way that that we could get some capitalize on that money now, be able to use some of it now without having to sell. I'd heard about reverse mortgages, which is where they give you money for your house, but then you give up equity. And so when you come to sell, you don't get all the money that's in your house. Mm-hmm. And I thought, nah, I don't want to do that. Had a mortgage once, don't want to have one again. So the idea of actually being the mortgagee, having mortgages on places, that was like, but I thought only banks could do that. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that like regular people can too. And just like the bank that looks at the property, make sure it's secure, make sure that they're they're on title, they have some assurance they're going to get paid back. Regular people can do that too. And so that is something that I have been doing over the past couple of years, and will continue to do in the future. And again, I'm not losing any equity in my house. I just sort of borrow it using my home equity line of credit, rent it out at a higher level of interest. I get the interest every month, which is great. So it's monthly interest payments, and then I get paid back and I do it again. When I told my friends about this, because they'd never heard about it. We were never trained on it. It didn't happen. We never heard about it in school. When I told them about it, they said things like, oh, our parents are older. We could buy some support for their parents to be able to have them stay in their home longer. Or people like me whose kids have gone on to higher degrees. So the RESP is gone. And yet maybe you still want to help them out a little bit, whether that's a gift, whether that's something that they pay back at a lower level of interest, whatever, there's money now that you could get to be able to do something like that. And for me personally, I'm looking at having a nice family vacation and paying for it with the kids. And in the past, I would have had to have waited a long time or cashed in some of my savings. Now, through being able to rent out the equity in my house and be able to get money back like I'm the bank, this vacation is basically for free. And that blows my mind. That was like the second thing that just sort of blew my mind, is that you know this. It was like, wow, why don't more people who have equity in their homes? And I know all across the country, it hasn't appreciated like, crazy Ontario, crazy British Columbia. But if you've paid off your mortgage over time, you have equity. And so however you choose, you can tap into that. So that was one of the things that I wanted to share, but also something that we will be talking to other people about.
Yeah, absolutely it is. I think it's just such a fabulous concept. It's so wild, isn't it? That, I mean, for where we live in the GTA, I purchased we purchased our family home in Toronto in 2018, and the amount of appreciation that we've had just over the last 3 years is nuts, And so it's really, I think it's pretty great, the thought that, anyone can do this. That owns a home, that has some equity available in it, that you can pull this money out of your home as opposed to just let it lie dormant, and you can invest it in real estate yourself and make returns on that to use for your family or for you, like a vacation. Like, how wonderful, to be able to spend time with your family without ever having to cash in, without ever having to sell, without ever having to decrease the equity that you actually own in your home. It's pretty it was a pretty mind-blowing concept for me when I learned it as well.
One of the things I like that maybe people wouldn't like, but I'm fairly risk averse. So when we paid back our mortgages over the, I don't know, 20 years, because we had our first house and then our second house, as we had kids in it, we needed more space.
Of course.
Over that time, contrary to what you're supposed to do, I always took the fixed interest rate, the bills. Like, it was never going down, but it was also never going up. And that idea of something on a fixed basis, and again, you don't get the highs, but then you don't get the lows. That appeals to me, and that's one of the things I like about monthly monthly interest, is that it's something that I know is happening, and therefore I can plan for it, and I can incorporate it into what I'm doing. So that's, people may feel differently, but that's one of the things that I like. It's predictable, and I like predictable.
Yeah, and that's totally reasonable. For me, I have a little bit higher risk tolerance, but some of my investments maybe aren't quite what I'm hoping for. A lot of cryptocurrency that I have capital invested in is just, the ride has been so wild. I'm not looking to pull it all out, but my thoughts are now, maybe I could have a more balanced portfolio, and having that predictable income in that way, I think is a really smart consideration when you're investing.
I think, the diversity, they always talk about, you put, some of your assets into, I don't know, speculative things that could go way up. They may go way down. I invested in BlackBerry. It went way down. It wouldn't, it's a great company. I'm very happy for it. I just got in at the wrong time when all the hype was there, like, oh yeah, it can't possibly go down, until it does. So there is certainly the potential for, there's a place for that, but there's also a place for a bit more moderate security, just being comfortable with stuff, so that you're not worried. Nobody wants to be worried when they're looking at their family, and they've got, like in your case, young children, or in my case, older children.
Yes, exactly. And the thought of, let's say you gave the example of helping out sort of an aging parent with personal support worker or home care or something like that. It's just, it's a set predictable income that you're making, and you don't need to be concerned about the fluctuations. You know exactly how much you're going to expect on your investment and interest, and that can go directly towards paying for that, for example. And you don't have to worry whether it goes higher or lower, or you know exactly what's happening. So yeah, I do agree with that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing that this isn't talked about more, and that's part of the reason that we are doing this, is to make people aware. Then they have the choice anyway in terms of what they want to do. And so our guests will also be talking about funding and creative funding strategies, what they've done personally, maybe what their company has done, and that is just a way to learn.
Absolutely. So we look forward to sharing that with you in all of our upcoming episodes.
Thank you very much, and have a great day.